a job on Broadway. Now what? Let's get into it. For those of you who are new here, my name is Katharine Quinn. I talk about Broadway, lifestyle, and financial freedom. I am working on my second Broadway process right now. I am on the writing team for Shucked, the new Broadway musical, written by Robert Horn, Shane McAnally, and Brandy Clark. It is a blast. We are in previews. It is selling like hotcakes. Get yourself to the Nederlander. It is hilarious and very fun. I think we desperately need to laugh right now. Anyway, shameless plug. And I want to tell you how to get a job on Broadway, because I sure as you know what, did not know. This is basically the video that I wish I'd had growing up. If you had told me when I was 9 years old, when I first came to the city, sat, rush seats, front row of 42nd Street, and just like gawked at those girls doing the shadow waltz, and one of them winked at me, and it like, I'm 33 and that memory will live on until the day I exit this earth, I wouldn't believe you, and I would also be bowled over with elation. This is the best job in the world in most ways. Anyway, money. But dreams! My brain just went to a complete other place. The point is that this information was definitely not available to me, and it's probably more readily available to you, and I just want to offer you all of the information that I didn't have. Well, not all of it, but as much as we can fit in like a 10-minute intro video. And then, if you have specific questions about Broadway jobs, please leave a comment. I would love to respond to you, create an additional video, hopefully answering your question or talking to somebody who's within that part of the industry, which leads me to my first point. I just said that part of the industry. There are so many people working on Broadway. There are thousands of people working on Broadway. When you think about the people who work on Broadway, you're probably thinking about the actors. That is a small portion of the dressers, props, stage management, lighting, sound, musicians, music director, choreographer, director, creative roles, press, advertising. I mean, the list goes on and on. General management, company management. There are so many facets of this industry. If you're not the lead in a high school musical, there are still so many jobs for you to pursue on Broadway or in theater in general. Making it your living, that's another entire conversation. That's hard to do even if you have a Broadway job. Talk about it later. But there is so much opportunity, and that's the first thing that I want to say. Since becoming an actor on Broadway is sort of the most obvious part of working on Broadway, let's start there. If you want to be an actor on Broadway, if you want to be an actor on Broadway, if you want to be my lover, you gotta know people. That's not always true. It's often true. Here's the thing. This industry is one of those industries, most of them are this way, but definitely in theater. It's all about relationships. It's all about relationships. It's all about connections. I wish it were just based on merit and talent, and someone could see into your brain and your heart and know just what a hard worker you are and how talented you are and how much you want to be there and how prepared you are. But no. Is your dad a producer? Is your mom a director? This is not meant to like completely dissuade anyone, because my father was in the Navy and my mom was a teacher. So that is not the only way this happens, but it helps. It does. And it would be disingenuous to pretend that it didn't. All right, so you want to be in a Broadway show, you want to be an actor in a Broadway show, you're going to work on those connections. The first, most obvious thing to do is go to an audition. If you're in theater world, if you're already auditioning in New York, you know that a lot of auditions, they aren't actually looking for people. They have to have required calls as per the union. Maybe they put you on a list, maybe you're being seen by the associate, maybe you're being seen by casting, maybe eventually after a number of callbacks, you're finally seeing the creative team. That's where you're going to want to work with your agent, your manager, and get them to work on those relationships and really push you for the projects that you feel you're right for. If you're wanting to be in the ensemble, if you're a dancer, taking class, making those connections with those choreographers, that's good bet. Something that I'm a giant fan of for any part of the industry, studying the playbill. Boy, how do you want to study the playbill? When I was in high school, I studied the playbill. Midway through college, I made a switch. I wasn't actually initially pursuing theater, and then I had a moment of panic after my freshman year and pivoted. So anyway, in college, seeing Broadway shows, I studied where every single person in those Broadway shows went to school, anytime their school got a shout out, because boy, that helps too, unfortunately. That's very real. Casting directors really, really love that stuff. So these are your Michigans, your CCMs, your BOCOs, you know, go blue. No hate to anyone at Michigan, it's not a cult, it's fine. They produce incredible people, it's fine. I'm probably just jealous of anyone who has school spirit. I don't. School connections help, personal connections help, taking class with the people. So also in the playbill, if you're like, whoa, I love this choreography. Let's start with choreography. If you love the choreography, take class with a choreographer. Audition for whatever regional show that choreographer is doing. If you're like, whoa, that's never gonna happen, who's their associate? Get to know their associate. Follow them on social media. See what their kind of vibe is, what their style is. Are they doing a pop-up class? Do they have a regular class at Steps or BDC? Game it out. Strategize. Work smarter, not harder. This business is hard enough. That's kind of all I'm gonna cover for now about the acting of it all. More of what I talk about later in this video is sort of like applicable to all parties. So if you wanna be an actor, feel free to jump ahead. I am gonna mark this by chapters just to make it super simple. Or if you're like, I don't know what in theater I wanna do yet, keep watching. Just watch all the way through. All right, stage management. Are you an organizational fool? Are you incredibly good under pressure? Are you diplomatic? Are you great in a crisis? Maybe you should be a stage manager. I sure shouldn't be. Stage managers are incredibly valuable. They also belong to the same union as actors. Actors Equity Association is the current name, although there is currently movement to change it to be more inclusive as they represent stage managers and other performers as well. In the SM world, from what I understand, you want to start as a PA and work your way up, or you want to establish those relationships with those stage managers who would be your, higher up stage managers, production stage manager, etc. Work with them out of town. Reach out to them. Take them to coffee. I personally love meeting people when I don't need anything from them. This business is so hard. I don't have any interest in working with anyone that I don't respect or like or actually want to work with, and I don't want to work with assholes. So I am on a constant mission to find people that I want to work with, people who I admire, and then immediately I start asking, what are they like to work with? Always. If they pass that vibe check and their work is good, I'm gonna pursue in some way, taking them to coffee, seeing if they have time for a quick Zoom, sending an email. When you're initially wanting to meet someone, you don't want to want something from them. I don't like going in with an ask. I like getting to know people because I actually want to get to know them. Frankly, I think this is pretty much valuable advice for anyone in any industry, but especially in theater, any facet of it. All right, let's talk about working as a creative on Broadway. That is the path that I am pursuing, adjacent to producing. Boy howdy, more so than any other part of the industry, connections. Make those relationships. Find the people that you want to work for. Start studying their work. Follow them on social media. Social media is shockingly powerful. Do not just DM spam them. Don't do it. Also, if you're gonna make an ask of them, be clear about what you're asking. I love to let them know, I'd love to take you to coffee, or if that doesn't work for you, let's hop on a quick Zoom. I make it incredibly clear I am asking for a half hour or less of their time. No one has time. No one has the luxury of time. And if they're lucky enough to work on Broadway, they definitely don't have time. Make it as easy as possible for them to say yes. You'll meet them in whatever neighborhood, wherever they're working. And if they say no, be chill about it. If they're kind enough to even respond, just keep tabs of that. 6 months later, if you have a project going on, be like, just don't be obnoxious. I believe in you. There's a way to do it that's not smarmy, especially if you're working your way up as a creative. How can you support that person? Offer them something. You know what I'm saying? I'm a big fan of yours, and I'd love to offer you something. Mount your own work. In town, out of town, invite people to see it. If you have fancy friends, get your fancy friends involved. If you have friends who are social media stars, get them to post about it. That stuff is so incredibly powerful. There are also fellowships, which help a lot with clout. My first experience on Broadway was through a fellowship with the SDCF, that is the Stage Directors and Choreographers Foundation. That is an aspect of the Stage Directors and Choreographers Union. They have a fellowship program. It is now broader than that for up-and-coming director choreographers, and I got to shadow Dennis Jones for the entire Broadway process of Tootsie in 2019, which was an invaluable learning experience. It's also where I met Robert Horn. He was the writer of Tootsie. He won a Tony Award for it. I loved Robert's work, and Robert is somebody who gets to know people in the room. We sat near one another. He was always incredibly kind to me. We had a fantastic conversation about story one day, and I was like, dang. Before I wanted to work in theater, I wanted to be a writer. Writing is totally in my blood, a passion of mine, and I want to work with people that I like and respect. I like and respect Robert, and so I was like, I don't even care that right now I'm pursuing directing and choreography. That's someone that I want to work with. I believe in that person. We followed each other on social media. I saw different projects he was working on. I happened to work on Hercules when it was at the Public in 2018? 2019? I don't know. I worked on Hercules. He ended up working on Hercules. When that happened, we already had a relationship established. I DM'd him and I said, Hey, congrats on Hercules. I really meant it. If you ever need a writer's assistant, please let me know. This was not my first ask, and this was not, by that I mean this was not my first correspondence with Robert. We had years of correspondence and like minimal, but like me supporting him from afar, reminding him of my existence in a non-obnoxious, non-super pokey way. It was just like, hey, I've always wanted to work with that guy. And then just being like, hi, congrats on Hercules. If you ever need an assistant, let me know. A week later, he messaged me back, hey, I've got a reading next week. You're gonna be thrown into the deep end. It's wild. You need to know this software, XYZ. I boarded my dog, even though I was staying in the city, because I knew I would have no time. I canceled my entire week. I learned a software program in a week's time. I knew I would take a hit financially. And I was like, we're gonna see how this goes. So I was like, I'm all in for this 1 week of the reading. We're gonna see how it goes with Robert. We're gonna see how the writer's assistant thing goes. We're gonna see how I feel about the project, etc. That was a year ago. That was Shucked. Then I got to work on it out of town, and now I'm working on it on Broadway. It's now been 4 years since I met Robert. So that's a slow burn. It's definitely not something, I mean, some people are lucky enough that it's immediate, but like, candidly, I'm loving this method of like finding people I want to work with and then just like cultivating those relationships so that if, when there is the right thing, it's not the first time you're like, hey, pick me, you know? And again, as I said, there are so many jobs on Broadway in so many different departments. Costumes and PAs and press and advertising. PAs are production assistants, by the way. That is a fantastic way to enter the theater universe. The only thing that I will say is typically PAs are a PA to stage management pipeline. It is sort of rare to pivot to other departments, and it can be tricky if people meet you within one department first. It can be tricky for them to see you as something else. I do think that that is changing. I think people do understand that you can be a multi-hyphenate. For a long time, I felt like I had to only pitch myself as a director choreographer, or I am a writer, or I am this. And still sometimes I default to whatever I think is most valuable to the person I'm speaking to, because people sometimes don't think that you can be highly skilled in multiple things. Millennials have had to constantly pivot. Gen Z are constantly pivoting. I think it is increasingly accepted and understood that multi-hyphenates don't just exist and can be capable of many things, but are in fact incredibly valuable. It is valuable that I read sheet music and play piano, and also, you know what I mean? Like, that's valuable as a director. That's valuable as a writer who has to contend with a score that they're reading. I think there's value to all of it. And I know that like, if when I am in positions of power, I know how valuable it is to have people who can do multiple things. The final thing that I want to say about this is, what's your goal? Do you want to work in the theater, full stop? Do you just want to be a part of the community? Do you want to make your living in the theater? Because that's a completely different proposition. It is so hard to make your living in theater. It is not impossible. It is totally possible. You may have to have additional jobs. I have additional jobs that I conveniently love and allow me to do theater. Do you want to work on Broadway specifically, or are you just content to work in theater full stop? You could also be the artistic director of a theater or work towards that track. You could work in education. You could work in development. Goodness knows we need more people in development. You could be a producer. The possibilities are somewhat limitless, and increasingly, you could work in social media for theater. I want to know what brought you to this video, so if you would comment what it is that you do in theater or what you want to do in theater, I would love to know who all is here. And I think I'm gonna leave it on the note of leave yourself open to what might happen. I definitely didn't see myself as part of a writing team as like a first stop on Broadway, but it's been joyful and I feel valuable and it's exceeded my expectations. You never know where those relationships are gonna go. I think we're gonna wrap it up there. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. As a new content creator, it is incredibly helpful to me. If there's specific info that you want about the Broadway world, about working in theater, please leave it in a comment below. I would love to answer your questions. As always, you're welcome to follow me on social media at It's Katharine Quinn on Instagram and TikTok. I am live Sundays at 7:30 on TikTok, and I think that's it for now. Thanks for watching.